Think of the coldest day you've ever experienced. Now multiply that by about 5, and you're getting close to what Inuit people deal with regularly. At minus 84 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 64 degrees Celsius, your freezer feels like a summer day in comparison. I once complained about my heating breaking down during winter. Talk about being dramatic. But try living in the Arctic, where the cold doesn't just bite, it devours. Because while we're all bundled up indoors, cranking up our thermostats, Inuit communities have mastered the art of sleeping in these extreme conditions without any modern heating. They've turned survival into an art form using techniques passed down through generations. Just to put things in perspective, at these temperatures, metal becomes so brittle it can shatter like glass, and exposed skin freezes in less than 30 seconds. Makes you wonder how they do it, right? Well, it starts with something that looks deceptively simple from the outside, the igloo. But trust me, these aren't just fancy snow forts. And now you're probably wondering how something made of snow could possibly keep you warm when it's colder than a penguin's toenails outside. But igloos are basically the iPhone of the Arctic. Simple on the outside, incredibly sophisticated on the inside. These aren't just random snow piles shaped like domes. They're architectural masterpieces that would make modern engineers scratch their heads in admiration. Let me break down the genius behind these snow shelters. First off, the blocks aren't just stacked willy-nilly. They're arranged in a perfect spiral, like a frozen snail shell. Each block is carefully angled inward, creating what engineers call a catenoid curve. Fancy term, I know, but it basically means the structure is so strong it won't collapse even when your neighbor's kid decides to play King Kong on top of it. The blocks are cut from hard-packed snow, not the fluffy stuff you use to make snowmen. This compressed snow is actually a fantastic insulator, full of tiny air pockets that trap heat like a cozy winter jacket. But inside an igloo, the temperature can climb up to 60 degrees Fahrenheit just from body heat alone. That's right, no furnace, no electric heater, just good old-fashioned human warmth doing its thing. Ever been stuck in a small elevator with too many people? Same principle, except this time it's actually useful. The dome shape is crucial too. It creates a natural circulation system where the cold air sinks to the entrance, which is purposely built lower than the living area, while the warm air rises and stays at the top where people sleep. The entrance tunnel, that's not just for dramatic effect. It's like an airlock on a spaceship, creating a barrier between the cozy interior and the Arctic blast outside. And get this, some traditional igloos even had multiple rooms. Talk about snow mansion living. Speaking of staying cozy, there's one more crucial detail about keeping warm in these ice palaces, and it has everything to do with what's above your head. Proper ventilation in an igloo is literally a matter of life and death. That small hole at the top of the dome isn't just there to let out your partner snoring, though that's definitely a bonus. It's actually a clever piece of engineering that keeps the air fresh and prevents you from slowly cooking yourself in your own snow oven. You see, when that cozy 60-degree Fahrenheit temperature starts building up inside, something interesting happens. The warm air rises because that's what warm air does. It's like the overachiever in class who always has to be at the top, carrying with it all the carbon dioxide you've been breathing out. Without proper ventilation, that CO2 would build up faster than gossip in a small town. And trust me, that's not the kind of atmosphere you want to sleep in. But the vent hole serves another crucial purpose. When the warm air hits the snow ceiling, it creates a thin layer of meltwater. Now, you might think this is bad news. Nobody wants their roof dripping on them while they sleep. But this water actually seeps into the snow and refreezes, creating an airtight ice layer that makes the igloo even stronger. It's like the igloo is constantly renovating itself. The size of this vent is critical. Too big and you lose too much heat. Too small and you risk suffocation. The Inuit have perfected this over generations, creating what modern engineers would call a passive ventilation system. And let me tell you, getting this wrong can have consequences worse than wearing socks with sandals. I once tried to build a snow fort as a kid and sealed it completely, but ended up with a soggy, collapsed mess that looked more like a failed souffle than a shelter. Temperature control is so precise that if you light even a small seal oil lamp inside, you might need to adjust the ventilation to prevent overheating. Yes, you heard that right. Overheating in a house made of snow. But staying warm isn't just about the building. It's also about what you wear while you're in it. Layering clothes in the Arctic isn't your average winter wardrobe decision. It's serious business. While we might throw on a chunky sweater and call it a day, Inuit sleepwear is a masterclass in temperature regulation. Their traditional sleep attire looks like it was designed by a genius who really, really hated being cold. The secret lies in the layers. And I'm not talking about the kind of layering your mom made you do for elementary school recess. Each layer serves a specific purpose, working together like a well-oiled machine. The inner layer, usually made from caribou skin with the fur facing inward, wicks moisture away from the body faster than your gym clothes could ever dream of. That's crucial because sweating in the Arctic is about as welcome as a porcupine in a balloon factory. The middle layer traps air, lots of it. The Inuit discovered something modern outdoor gear companies spend millions trying to replicate. Air is one of the best insulators nature provides. By creating multiple thin layers with air spaces between them, they've essentially built a personal greenhouse around their body. And unlike your puffy winter coat that loses all its insulating power when compressed, these natural materials maintain their warming properties even when you're lying down. The outer layer is where things get really interesting. It's typically made from seal skin with the fur facing outward. This creates a windproof, waterproof barrier that would make modern rain gear jealous. Plus, the natural oils in sealskin provide additional protection against moisture. Nature's own Gore-Tex, if you will. I once tried a modern weatherproof jacket in a light drizzle and ended up looking like I'd jumped in a pool. Meanwhile, these traditional garments laugh in the face of Arctic storms. But all these layers are designed to be adjustable. Too warm, loosen a layer. Too cold, tighten everything up. It's like having a thermostat built into your clothes. And speaking of staying warm, wait until you hear about what they sleep on. Because, well, the Inuit figured out the perfect sleeping system centuries ago, and it didn't involve synthetic materials or fancy brand names. Their sleeping bags, made from seal skin and lined with caribou fur, are engineering marvels that would make modern outdoor gear companies weep with jealousy. Take sealskin. It's basically nature's waterproof shield. The skin is naturally oily and water-resistant, creating an outer shell that keeps moisture out better than your supposedly waterproof phone. And unlike synthetic materials that crack in extreme cold, sealskin actually becomes more flexible and durable as temperatures drop. It's like the material version of that friend who somehow gets more energetic the colder it gets. But the magic happens with the caribou fur lining. Each caribou hair is hollow. Yes, you read that right, hollow. These tiny tubes trap air like millions of microscopic thermoses, creating an insulation layer that puts modern sleeping bags to shame. 1 square inch of caribou fur contains more air trapping power than the most expensive synthetic insulation money can buy. The fur is also aligned in a specific direction, allowing it to trap warm air while letting moisture escape. It's like having a one-way valve for heat. The Inuit don't just throw these materials together randomly either. The construction of their sleeping bags involves careful stitching with sinew that actually swells when wet, creating waterproof seams. I once tried to waterproof the seams on my tent with fancy modern sealant. Let's just say the results weren't pretty. Meanwhile, this traditional technique has been keeping people dry and warm for thousands of years. Even the shape of these sleeping bags is carefully thought out. They're designed to be slightly snug, eliminating air pockets that could create cold spots. But they're not so tight that you feel like a human sausage. There's just enough room to shift position without letting all the warm air escape. Before anyone crawls into these cozy sleeping havens, though, there's an important preparation step that makes all the difference. Because the Inuit don't just jump into their sleeping spots like we flop into our beds after a long day. They've mastered the art of pre-warming their sleeping areas, and it's a game changer in the battle against Arctic cold. You know those fancy heated blankets we plug in? The Inuit had their own version. No electricity required. Hot stones are the winner of this pre-warming system. These aren't just any rocks picked up from the ground. They're carefully selected stones that can hold heat for hours. The Inuit heat them by the fire until they're toasty warm, then wrap them in thick furs before placing them strategically in sleeping areas. These stones work like natural hot water bottles, slowly releasing heat throughout the night. In fact, certain types of stones can maintain temperatures of up to 150 degrees Fahrenheit for several hours after being heated. The placement of these stones is crucial. strategic positioning that would make a chess grandmaster proud. They're often placed where feet will rest because nobody likes cold toes, am I right? And near the core body areas where they'll do the most good. The stones are rotated out when they cool down, maintaining a constant source of warmth. It's like having a heating system with zero carbon footprint unless you count the campfire smoke. But it's genius how they combine this with snow blocks. When the stones slowly release their heat, they create a small amount of meltwater that refreezes into an ice layer, just like what happens with the ventilation system. This ice layer actually helps trap the warmth even better. It's like the stones are giving the igloo a warm hug from the inside. Some Inuit communities even developed a sort of stone rotation system where different families would take turns keeping the communal fire going, ensuring there were always hot stones available. It's basically the Arctic version of borrowing a cup of sugar from your neighbor, except what you're borrowing might save your life. But stones aren't the only source of warmth in an igloo. There's another heat generator that's even more reliable: the human body itself. Every minute, your body pumps out roughly the same amount of heat as a 100-watt light bulb. That's right, you're essentially a human lamp, minus the annoying cord and the ability to actually light up a room. But the Inuit discovered that sharing body heat isn't just for romantic comedies set in snowstorms. In traditional sleeping arrangements, families often sleep close together, multiplying their heating power. 2 people generate twice the warmth, 3 people triple it. It's like compound interest, but with body heat. This might sound uncomfortably close to modern sensibilities, but when it's negative 84 degrees Fahrenheit outside, you quickly forget about your bubble. But it's amazing how they position themselves. The sleeping platform in an igloo is raised, taking advantage of the fact that warm air rises. So while you might think sleeping on a block of snow sounds about as comfortable as a bed of nails, you're actually positioning yourself in the warmest part of the igloo. It's like having a penthouse suite, except your penthouse is made of snow and your neighbors are all related to you. In fact, a family of 4 sleeping close together can raise the temperature in their immediate area by up to 40 degrees Fahrenheit higher than the rest of the igloo. That's like having a built-in electric blanket powered by nothing but snoring relatives. And unlike modern heating systems that break down just when you need them most, this heating method is completely reliable, unless your family decides to go camping without you. The Inuit also develop specific sleeping positions that maximize heat retention while minimizing contact with cold surfaces. It's like a game of human Tetris, except instead of clearing lines, you're trying to stay warm enough to avoid becoming a human popsicle. But to really make the most of all this body heat, you need to master the art of breathing properly. Breathing might seem like the most natural thing in the world, until you're trying to do it in air cold enough to freeze your nose hair solid. The Inuit developed breathing techniques that would make a yoga instructor jealous, all focused on conserving precious body heat. When you breathe normally in extreme cold, you lose heat faster than a smartphone battery in winter. The key is breathing through your nose, which acts like nature's built-in air conditioner, or in this case, air heater. Your nose warms and humidifies incoming air before it hits your lungs. Did you know your nose can warm freezing air by up to 80 degrees Fahrenheit in the fraction of a second it takes to inhale? That's more efficient than your car's heating system. Without this pre-warming system, breathing in Arctic air would feel like swallowing ice cubes whole. The Inuit also practice something similar to what modern scientists call respiratory heat exchange, but they discovered it centuries before lab coats were even a thing. By breathing slowly and deeply, they reduced the total amount of cold air entering their lungs. Quick, shallow breaths might work fine for your morning jog, but in the Arctic, they're about as helpful as a chocolate teapot. Some Inuit even developed a technique of breathing into their fur clothing, creating a pocket of warm, humid air that helps pre-warm the next breath. It's like having a personal air warmer attached to your face. The moisture from their breath also gets trapped in the fur, where it freezes and actually adds another layer of insulation. Talk about making lemonade out of lemons, or, in this case, making ice walls out of frost. The really fascinating part is how they time their breathing with their activities. When they're active, they breathe more rapidly but shallowly to avoid overheating. When resting or sleeping, they switch to deep, slow breaths that conserve energy and warmth. It's like having a gear shift for your respiratory system. All this careful breathing requires fuel, though, and the Inuit diet is specifically designed to keep their internal furnace burning hot. The Inuit diet packs more calories per bite than a deep-fried candy bar at a state fair, and it's all for good reason. When you're trying to stay warm in temperatures that could freeze mercury, you need serious fuel. Let's talk numbers. Whale blubber contains over 9 calories per gram. That's more than twice the energy content of your average protein bar. A single serving of traditional Inuit food can pack enough calories to power through an entire day of battling Arctic conditions. The fat content in their diet would make a cardiologist faint, but in their environment, it's as essential as sunscreen in the Sahara. The really clever part isn't just how much they eat, but what they eat and when. Certain foods are saved specifically for nighttime consumption because they take longer to digest, creating a slow-release heating effect that lasts through the sleeping hours. It's like having a time-released space heater in your stomach. Traditional favorites include raw fish, seal meat, and the ultimate Arctic energy bar, dried whale skin with a layer of blubber attached. Even the way they consume these foods is strategic. Ever tried to eat a frozen candy bar? That's child's play compared to consuming frozen meat in the Arctic. The Inuit develop specific cutting techniques that create thin, easily thawable strips of meat that can be eaten without breaking your teeth. They also discovered that certain fats, when eaten raw, provide better warming properties than when cooked, a fact that modern science only recently confirmed. Let me give you the statistics. During winter months, traditional Inuit diets could consist of up to 75% fat. That's like eating a stick of butter with every meal. Except their version comes with a side of essential omega-3 fatty acids and fat-soluble vitamins that help the body adapt to extreme cold. But surviving in these conditions isn't just about what you put in your body, it's also about what goes on in your head. The Arctic isn't just a physical challenge, it's a mental marathon, especially when trying to sleep in temperatures that make penguins shiver. The Inuit developed a mindset specifically around rest that would impress any sleep therapist. Instead of lying awake worrying about the cold, which raises stress hormones and actually makes you feel colder, they approach bedtime with remarkable calm. Their traditional bedtime stories aren't just entertainment, they're tools for developing cold confidence. These tales often feature characters who master the art of sleeping in extreme conditions, teaching vital lessons through humor. One popular story talks about a young hunter who was so relaxed sleeping in his igloo, he missed spring entirely. A joke that helps children associate their snow shelter with comfort rather than fear. The real genius here? Using laughter to lower stress levels, which actually helps maintain body temperature during sleep. The Inuit also practice what modern science calls thermal meditation, a state of mental calm that actually reduces shivering and helps conserve energy during sleep. They teach their children to focus on the warmth they're generating rather than the cold trying to get in. It's like having a mental thermostat that helps you drift off even when your breath freezes in midair. But studies show that this calm mindset can lower heart rate and metabolism during sleep, reducing the body's oxygen needs by up to 10%. This means less deep breathing in frigid air and more efficient use of body heat. And when it comes to putting all these survival skills together, no one does it better than an entire community working as one. Because in the Arctic, survival depends on teamwork that's been perfected over thousands of years. When temperatures plummet to bone-chilling levels, Inuit communities transform into well-oiled survival machines. Extended families share larger igloos, creating thermal clusters that can raise interior temperatures by up to 54 degrees Fahrenheit just through body heat, like having a free heating system powered by your relatives. The community develops sophisticated systems for sharing sleeping resources. Premium sealskin sleeping bags rotate to those who need them most, like elders feeling the cold or exhausted hunters returning from trips. Specific families master different skills. Some excel at cutting perfect snow blocks, others at building sleeping platforms at the ideal height for heat retention. There's even a specialized role for igloo architects who can read snow conditions like meteorologists read weather maps. Emergency shelters dot common travel routes, marked clearly enough to find in blinding snowstorms. These aren't your average rest stops. They're survival stations with pre-built sleeping platforms and essential supplies. It's like having a network of Arctic hotels where the only payment required is staying alive. Even humor plays a vital role in these arrangements. One popular story tells of a man banished to sleep alone because of his thunderous snoring, until his family realized his heating abilities outweighed the noise pollution. In temperatures cold enough to freeze thoughts solid, even bad jokes become survival tools. In the end, the greatest tool for surviving the Arctic night isn't just the igloo, the clothes, or even the techniques. It's the strength of a community that refuses to let anyone face the cold alone.